you've ever felt like you're too old to learn piano, give me a few minutes, because I don't think the biggest obstacle is your age. I don't think it's your talent. I don't think it's your fingers. I think it's the psychology behind how adults learn. I've taught many adult piano students, and I've noticed something surprising. The people who succeed aren't usually the most naturally gifted. They're the ones who experience a few specific mental shifts that make learning feel possible, enjoyable, and sustainable. In this video, I'll show you the 5 psychological principles that explain why some adults fall in love with piano and keep progressing for years, while others quietly quit after a few months. Let's dive in. The first principle is called self-efficacy. It's a psychological term that simply means your belief in your ability to succeed. Now, this is where many adults begin their piano journey, but they don't believe that they can really do it. Not really. They'll say things like, I'm not musical, my fingers don't work, I should have started as a child. And honestly, I can understand why they would feel that way. Because as adults, we're very used to being competent. We're used to knowing what we're doing. So sitting down at a piano and feeling like a beginner again can feel uncomfortable. But then something interesting happens. A student learns their first recognizable song. Maybe it's simplified, maybe it's not perfect, but it's music, real music. And in that moment, their brain starts rewriting its story. Instead of saying, I can't play the piano, it starts saying, maybe I can. And that tiny shift changes everything. Because confidence doesn't come before success. Confidence comes from success. One small win often creates more momentum than months of theory, skills, or exercises ever could. The second principle is motivation. And motivation isn't what most people think it is. Most people think that motivation comes from discipline. But what I've observed is that adults stay motivated when they can feel 2 things. Freedom, progress. Freedom to choose music they genuinely love, and progress that they can actually hear. This is why some adults practice consistently without being reminded. It's not because they have more willpower, it's because they're excited. Wow. When someone finally learns a song they've wanted to play for years, practicing stops feeling like work and starts feeling rewarding. The truth is, adults don't need more pressure. Most adults already have enough pressure in their lives. What they need is enjoyment, because joy sustains what pressure destroys. Have you ever sat down at a piano for 15 minutes and suddenly realized an hour has passed? That's called flow. Flow is a psychological state where you're completely absorbed in what you're doing. Your attention narrows, the outside world disappears, and for a little while, all that exists is the music. This is one of the reasons so many adults describe piano as therapy. Not because they're trying to escape life, but because piano gives their minds somewhere else to focus. Work disappears, stress melts away. The endless mental chatter disappears. And for a few moments, you're completely present. What's fascinating is that flow occurs when the challenge is balanced perfectly. Not too easy, not too difficult. Just enough challenge to keep you engaged. When that happens, piano stops feeling like practice and starts feeling like meditation. The 4th principle is psychological safety. And I think that this is one of the most overlooked parts of learning the piano. Every adult student is doing something brave. They're putting themselves in a position where they might make mistakes, that they might sound bad, they might feel awkward. And most adults aren't used to that. When people feel judged, they become tense. And when they become tense, learning slows down. But when people feel safe, their brain becomes much more open to learning. That's why I often remind students, mistakes are not evidence that you're failing. Mistakes are evidence that you're learning. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress. In fact, the willingness to make mistakes is often the exact thing that allows progress to happen. The final principle is identity, and in my experience, this is the most powerful one. At the beginning, people say, I'm trying to learn piano. A little later, they say, I'm learning piano. But eventually something changes. They start saying, I play piano. That may sound like a small difference, but psychologically it's enormous. Because behavior follows identity. When someone believes they are a pianist, they practice differently. They approach challenges differently. They become more resilient, and every song they learn strengthens their identity. At that point, they're no longer trying to become someone who plays piano. They already see themselves that way. And that changes everything. So when people ask me why adults should learn piano, I rarely talk about scales or technique or music theory, because the biggest transformation isn't musical, it's psychological. Piano builds confidence, it creates moments of flow, it teaches resilience, and over time, it changes the way people see themselves. The goal isn't simply to learn songs. The goal is to become someone who plays the piano. And once that identity takes hold, the journey becomes much easier. If you're currently learning piano as an adult, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these 5 principles resonated with you the most? Let me know in the comments below. If you would like to learn alongside other adult piano students who are on the same journey, you're welcome to join us inside Musicate Academy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.